This week we're going to look at how you can use images in web design. So what types of images can you use? Of course, you can use photographs, you can use illustrations, or you can use graphic icons. Just remember that for this project, you have to create at least 50% of the images yourself in any of these three categories. And the remainder of the images you have to have license for. So we'll start by looking at photography. Photography is a useful way to convey images online, and now that people have greater access to broadband internet, websites can use very large photographs to elicit emotions from the user. So here's an example of the New South Wales government website. So even though they are very corporate, they are trying to create an image of being friendly, focused on human beings, family friendly, happy, and you can tell that through the colors of the photographs they've chosen. Very, very bright, very sunny, very happy. The other thing worth noting is that the photographs feature people. People like looking at people, and so you will find as you look at a lot of different websites that a lot of the photographs you see on websites have a human being as the subject. Now, another interesting thing that a lot of websites use in these photographs is the direct gaze. So you'll notice that the children in this photo are looking directly at the camera, so it feels to the viewer like they are looking directly at you, and that also draws our eyes in, because human beings, if someone looks at you, you look at them, because they could be a threat, they could be a friend, they're communicating something to you. Other parts to look at on this photo are the horizontal running track echoes the horizontal lines of the website. So use the composition to further reinforce your design. So here are other examples of people looking at the camera, so it feels like they're looking at you. So these are different web pages from the Swinburne website, and the pages that are looking at recruiting people, so having people sign up, tend to be the ones where they've chosen a photo where the subject is looking directly at the camera. Now, these websites are all using what we call a hero image. You can have a great big image, you can have a background image. It's a very, very big photograph to create a strong look and feel to the page. Now, in most instances, people don't want to lose all of that real estate just to a photo, so they will have text on top of it. So the thing to remember when you're using text in this way is it still has to be readable. When using a hero shot like this, sometimes the images flow with the web page. So as you scroll down, the image scrolls up like it would like any other content. Other times it's fixed to the page and the content scrolls over it, creating a faux 3D effect, or what they call a parallax scrolling effect. Now, you've got to be very careful of using text on top of photographs. So in this example, it is actually a bit difficult to read the yellow text on top of the yellow tinted photograph because of the lack of contrast, even though the word breakfast is in bold and it's very large text. In this instance, we have white text on a mostly white background. That creates very little contrast and it is very hard to read. This is something to note when you're using photographs in the background, because often when we take a photo, there are a range of different colors and tones. And so wherever the color or the tone is close to that of the text, you are going to make that text unreadable. See, this is much more effective where you have a darker photo and a light text on top of it. So this creates enough contrast so that you can read that text. If your photograph does have a range of tones and colours, making it very difficult to read the text, consider putting an overlay. So a block of colour, semi-transparent, between the text and the photograph to create greater contrast, because remember, the people are reading the text. That's the information on the page. That's the most important thing. If the text weren't important, you wouldn't have it there in the first place. The photograph is secondary to that, so you can block that out a little bit with a form of overlay. You can also blur the photograph or make sure the photograph has a blurred background, and that also helps create that contrast between the crisp, clear text so that it is more readable. And the images don't have to be hero shots. You can use individual photographs smaller than the page, so not 100% wide, and certain genres use that a lot, especially when it comes to arranging them together to support each other for providing information. So in this case, we've got an example of an online store. Often they have a lot of different photographs advertising different products or different sections of their store. And you can see here that each of these photographs is meant to evoke a mood, to draw the user in much more effectively than if you just use text as a link. But also you will notice they still have text, so you know what you're clicking through to. But they have used the technique of having this overlay between the text and the photograph to create greater contrast, because if you had that white text on top of the photographs that are selected, it would be incredibly hard to read. Other options when it comes to using photographs are to crop out or mask areas so that you create an even stronger effect. If you are going to use photos in a very visually artistic way, then consider what you're doing with the color. You can always adjust the colors of the photograph so that they match the color palette of the website. You don't have to just use photographs. If, for instance, you don't like taking photographs, you can't take photographs of your particular topic, or you really enjoy doing illustration, then you might consider using illustration for your website. Illustrations on websites can be an effective way to draw the user in. They can be fun and quirky, and they can help convey information better than a photograph can. So in this instance, we've got the color palette of the website being reinforced by the colors used in the illustration. We have human beings to attract our attention, though they are cartoon-like, but also the illustration itself is conveying what the website is about. So you're learning a little bit more about how to use the product through the fun illustration. You can also use illustrations and motion graphics to convey information design. Many websites employ scrolling effects that combine with animation so that the graphics actually animate. They change as they scroll down. That conveys information and also creates a fun user experience. The eye is drawn to change. If you ever have movement in your peripheral vision, it will immediately draw your attention, because that's how we evolved. Moving things in our peripheral vision could be a threat, so we look at them. And so if you have a web page where you have things moving as people scroll down, that is going to draw their attention. You can also use your illustration style to support the brand look and feel. So here we have a combination of photography and illustration in a very quirky way, so that people know exactly what the brand is standing for. And if this is the sort of illustration you like doing, by all means consider using it for your website. And now we move to the last category we're covering in this presentation: graphic icons. It is tempting to use graphic icons because as designers we know that symbols can convey information far quicker than words can. These symbols or icons can also be designed in an attractive minimalist way to create an overall look and feel for your website. They can be slick, they can be professional. A lot of designers absolutely love creating or using icons. In this example of a website, you can see that bright colors attract attention and create a pleasing color palette. The icons themselves are all white, so monochromatic on top of these beautiful colors. Now, one thing to be aware of though is that some of the colors provide insufficient contrast to easily read the icon and read the text on top. So you still have to be very, very careful of the color combination and the contrast that you are providing. Now, in this instance, some of the icons are possibly difficult to understand what it means, and so they have also combined that with text to make it easy to read, easy to understand, and really the icons just supplement the information. They are not there as the main navigation aid. Here is a website that goes in the opposite direction. Over-reliance on icons can create what is called mystery meat navigation. Mystery meat navigation is the use of seemingly arbitrary symbols to act as links in a web design. The user doesn't know what the link is until they hold their cursor over it. The term mystery meat navigation was first coined in 1998 by Vincent Flanders, the author of Web Pages That Suck. So now I'm just going to ask you to look at this particular website and ask yourself, what does the top middle icon stand for? If you guessed interior design, then you get a gold star. If you did not guess interior design, then you are lumped in with the rest of us who had no idea what any of these icons stand for. It's quirky. They have done it deliberately to create their own look and feel for their brand. This is obviously a quirky, out of the box. I mean, the name of the company is Off Box. They want to appear different, but you're taking a great risk by doing that. So if you are going to use icons, be aware. So just to summarize, imagery in web design. Images make websites emotionally appealing. Words are great for cognitive information, but it is images that draw us in emotionally, that make a viscerally meaningful experience of a website. What images will support your website's look and feel best? So some of the examples I showed you look amazing with, the quirky illustrations, but that might not work if you're doing, for instance, a government website. Do the images add visual interest? What is their purpose on your site? Or do they add information? And if they do, is that information clear? And most importantly, is your text still readable? Remember, the purpose of a website is usually to convey information in some way, shape, or form. If your images mean that the text can't be read, chances are that information is no longer being conveyed, and you're probably just irritating your end user. And lastly, are the icons easy to understand? You as a designer might be able to come up with some creative new symbol that stands for go to our infrastructure reports. But if the end user does not immediately recognize that symbol and understand that that means go to our infrastructure reports, then the icon is worse than useless. It actually is going to confuse them and make a worse user experience than if you had omitted the icon and just used words.